Hey y'all, Big Tim here. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Old School and Bass with Big Tim. Well, I'd originally planned on making a video today um, about how, different anglers are moving back and forth between bass and FLW. But something happened late last night that I saw that kind of changed my mind about that. So I thought we'd address that here. We'll probably do the other video talking about people switching back and forth next week. But this week we're going to talk about some controversy that has come up. We had the FLW Toyota Series Championship on Lake Cumberland this past weekend. It was a pretty tough tournament. We'll talk about that in a minute too. But the controversy is the fact that I wasn't going to mention any names, but now that he's put out his disclaimer, I guess you'd say. But there was some stuff brought up on the internet, mostly on Facebook. If you guys have ever followed Randy Flowers, he's pretty funny most of the time, and he does have a tendency to find out about some controversy and print it. But Randy Flowers posted some stuff on the internet the other day on Facebook about Jacob Wheeler, and made the impression that he was fishing the off-limits area of Grider Hill Marina on Lake Cumberland down on the lower end, and making it pretty blatant without saying it, that he was fishing the off-limits area. So, when I first saw it, my first thoughts were, first off, these docks look very similar. In fact, I thought there were some docks that I know of at Dale Hollow. There's not many docks out there that have green roofs, but the picture shows Wheeler fishing in front of a dock with a green roof. Then the next picture they show says that you're not supposed to fish the marina docks or inside the slips, which is definitely, you can see from the picture, even though it's very far away and not a very great picture, you can definitely see that he is not fishing inside the slips, for sure. Absolutely for sure. He may be close to one of the docks. It's hard to tell. But my first impression of this was, do I really know what's going on here? Everybody rushed to judgment. And I mentioned this in a post that I wrote. Everybody rushed to judgment about the kids from Covington Catholic when they went up to Washington, D.C. to visit the Lincoln Memorial. A lot of people rushed to judgment and condemned those kids about how they treated that Native American fella. Well, it turns out they were really in the right. In fact, the Native Americans were actually kind of pursuing the Covington Catholic kids because of their hats. They had some Make America Great hats on. So, based on that, it made me start to really think about what I see on the internet and what I believe. And, the problem with it is you post it on Facebook and all of a sudden everybody is judged by this mob mentality. They don't know all the facts. People have no idea. But the truth of the matter is if you say it on social media or put it on TV, people are going to believe it, Granted, there's a lot of people out there that, have calmer heads and want to find out exactly what happened, or, people that just don't care. But there's a lot of people that just are in a hurry to rush to condemn anyone, and to have a guy's career on the line, possibly, and, definitely a reputation being slandered. That really kind of got under my skin. Myself, I've had that situation before. I know several other people have as well. And this really kind of touched home with me. So I thought about it a little more. And then a friend of mine posted some more about it. And I was like, whoa, we need to stop and think about this before we start, just throwing everybody's name under the bus and everything else. And like I said, I've been there. It's been very bothersome for me. And anybody that's been there knows that it's easy to convince people that you did something wrong. But it's not easy to convince them after the fact that you weren't in the wrong. So Jacob Wheeler made his post and said that he had checked with the tournament officials before he even made a cast in the tournament whether this spot was legal. Basically what it looks like is he found some fish on a wire that holds the docks in place. Those wires go down to big concrete blocks 150 feet deep. And so technically he was not fishing the dock. He was fishing the wire. And, different people have different interpretations. But there's only one person's interpretation that makes a difference, and that's the tournament director. Everybody else can say what they want. If a tournament director said he was within his rights, as if he was fishing the cable and not the dock, then that's legit. Now, I do think that somebody of that caliber, would it be caliber or caliper? Anyway, somebody of that station, he's pretty high up the list of fishermen. I probably wouldn't want to live that close to the gray area. A friend of mine and I were having a conversation on Sunday about how a lot of people like to live in that gray area. Myself, my reputation has always meant more to me than winning a tournament. Now, granted, I'm not fishing tournaments for hundreds of thousands of dollars either. That could make a big difference. But my reputation is pretty important to me. I think I still have a pretty good reputation. Granted, I've rubbed some people the wrong way a lot of times. There's a lot of people out there that don't care for me, but I like to think that there's probably 10 times more that do. The reputation's pretty important, and it's pretty easily hurt and tarnished. So I try to stay away from situations that can give people opportunity to talk. And being that case, I would think that somebody like Jacob Wheeler may, at least in the future, think about these things before he does it again. Granted, you're fishing for $235,000 there. So that could be a big deal. It is definitely a big deal. It's almost $250,000. So it's a tough decision. But I wouldn't want to tarnish my reputation, possible future business dealings with sponsors or anything else like that, to live that close to the gray area. So, that being said, I think maybe the tournament officials need to get these rules a little bit more straightened out. I've always said I'm not a fan of fishing in docks anyway. I shouldn't say I'm not a fan. I have enjoyed fishing in docks. But for a tournament, I think we ought to eliminate all dock fishing. I know I'm going to catch a lot of flack for that. Depending on where you go in the country, that's what they do the most. But if you're fishing on a lake where one dock is off limits, make them all off limits. Make the entire dock. Most of these places, like Grider Hill on Lake Cumberland, have a break wall all the way around. And I would say no fishing inside that break wall. And no fishing inside the no wake buoys, whatever. That would clarify everything. Nobody could ever have a problem. There was always going to be that one guy that puts his boat right up against the no wake buoy or the break wall, but he's still not inside of it. He's outside. So that's what I would do for it. But I guess the bottom line for this video is we need to be more conservative about what we post on social media and trying to get people to judge other people about. It can backfire on us. It can also ruin somebody's reputation. We wouldn't like it done to us. And it definitely could be done to us. So, I don't know. It's a tricky situation. I think the pro anglers need to make sure that they put themselves in a better position. They need to set a little better example. I think the rules people for the tournament directors need to be a little bit more clear. No, they need to be a whole lot more clear. And each one of us needs to have a little bit more integrity when we go fish. I know that integrity has a dollar sign behind it a lot of times. A lot of people say, I wouldn't do that for $1 million, but you've never had $1 million laid in front of you to try it. At least I haven't. So, another perfect example. I was in a tournament one time, and there were a bunch of buoys, And the buoys said no boats. And I remember I asked the tournament director, I said, am I allowed to fish here? He said, the buoys say no boats. It doesn't say no fishing. Cool. So I fished it. There were a lot of people that complained and bitched about that. But like you said, the buoy said no boats. Didn't say no fishing. As long as I kept my boat on the outside of those buoys, I was in good shape. So interpretation is a big part of it. But anyway, enough about that. So about the Lake Cumberland tournament, it's pretty neat to see that the guy that won it was using a really old school lure. It's so old school that I don't even have one. I don't think I ever did have one. But it's a tail spinner. If you Google tail spinner, you'll probably come up with the Tom Mann's Little George. But this one was actually called the Booger Spin by a friend of mine. Makes these baits out of the Watts Bar area. I think he lives in Spring City. But it's called Big Daddy's Baits. And Brian Hatfield runs that. He's a good guy. He used to live up here in Kentucky. We used to fish together in some of the Kentucky Bass Federation tournaments years ago. But that is an old school bait, man. That is really neat to see that happen. And just a month ago, we had that tournament at Dale Hollow. And a lot of guys were fishing another old school bait, the Silver Buddy. Really cool. But another bait, talking about old school, we had the Bass Open at Lake Louisville. And we had a Kentucky fellow win that tournament. But I thought it was really cool that he had his own homemade spinner baits that he was catching them on, and on pistol grip rods. Now, I gotta tell you, these pistol grip rods are probably no longer than 6 feet. You try to go find a 6-foot rod these days, because as I've told you, I like a short rod for a jerk bait. Trying to find a 6-footer, impossible. His might have even been 5.5 feet. But pistol grip rods, man, that guy is old school. Really like that. Anyway, tune in next time. We'll be talking about how people are switching back and forth between FLW and Major League Fishing and the Elite Series and everything else. And until then, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you the next time.